Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. We made it to Radio Row.
We did. Some people cleared out today on Thursday at the Combine, and we have stolen the seat of the Minnesota Vikings.
Boom. Nailed it.
Skull, as they say.
Yeah. So we are here to talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes that we talked to on Thursday. We talked to 4 on Wednesday, and we would invite you to go find that show on our Substack page where we went for an hour and 50 minutes. We talked about Sonny Styles and Ardell Reese and Caden McDonald and Caden Curry. We talked about how often people wash their jeans for 20 minutes.
Not at the Combine, on the show. We didn't ask that of the players at the Combine.
Caleb, how often do you wash your jeans? Again, our show is approaching that slowly. We're not there yet.
Not yet.
But then on Thursday, we talked with Davison Igbinosun, Lorenzo Styles, Caleb Downs, Will Kacmarek, and Max Klare. That's what we're going to talk about here on the free podcast channel and YouTube feed. Thanks to everybody for joining us. These are our only 2 days in Indy, Landis. Do we get our money's worth?
I think so. I actually wasn't certain that we would, but I thought this ended up going pretty well. I mean, with the exception of Caleb Downs, who we can talk about, like his media session was just packed, which is not surprising. We did get the opportunity, I think, to ask about just about everything we wanted of the Ohio State guys here, so I think it went well.
Yeah. Let's talk about Davison Igbinosun first. We'll talk about all those 5 guys today. We'll talk about some other stuff. But you and I were both, I don't know, what's the right word? What did we think of Davison Igbinosun's time with the media on Thursday?
We love him. Like he's one of our own. Is
guy.
That too strong? Is that putting too fine a point on it?
He's great. We want to hang out with him more. I was like, man, do we miss out by not having more interview sessions with him?
Maybe. Yeah, we didn't get him a ton, I guess. Like now that I'm thinking about it, like he spoke some, but like he wasn't like a regular. There are some guys we sort of get like over and over again. He was not one of them. So no, it does make me wish we would have gotten him a little more this year.
So we're interrupting the show because Ari Wasserman is texting, and he is getting ready to go on Feinbaum wearing the Big Ten trifecta shirt.
Oh my goodness!
So please go consume that content. Again, how we got to the place where Ari is standing up for Northern superiority instead of us.
He's a proud son of Ohio.
He is a proud.
Don't let him fool you.
He is a great. What's the word? Like when he's not exactly with you, but he's one of your guys.
I don't know.
Like that guy. So we're glad to have him, but that should be us.
I thought something bad or important happened. No, it's just Ari. Ari's going on Feinbaum. Okay.
Davison Igbinosun, I'm looking at some draft projections. The consensus mock draft, which is like a great database that gather all kinds of drafts and they come to a consensus, as by the name, has him 83rd overall, which would be a 3rd-round pick. CBS Sports, I just happened to look at theirs because they did a 7-round mock right before the Combine. Mike Renner did. Had him 133rd, which would make him a 4th-round pick. Dane Brugler from The Athletic, who is quoted in an Ardell Reese story that just went up on our Bill and Doug Substack, billanddougosu.substack.com. Dane Brugler, great job at The Athletic. He has IGB 50th overall as a player, which would be a 2nd-round pick. It's interesting. It's quite a range. The corners will be measured and work out on Friday, correct?
Correct.
I am super interested to see how long IGB's arms are, how tall he is, how thick he is, like what he weighs at, and then the way he moves on the field. And I think we might be arriving at something closer to 50 than 133 by the time everybody gets to look at him.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be a 1st-rounder. If you could have caught me at a time within the last year where I would have told you I thought IGB would be a 1st-rounder. I'm not entirely ruling it out, but I wouldn't bank on it now. But I do think he has the ability to really help himself here. I think he's going to run really well. And he said on Thursday that he plans on doing all of the drills here. If you're long and you're super fast, you become a cornerback who shoots up draft boards.
Yes.
And I think that can happen for him. Some of the more like change of direction like stuff, we'll see how that measures out for him. But we know he's big. Like that's not changing. It's just a matter of like what kind of time does he put out there when he runs the 40 on Friday. And I think he'll interview well too, like based off the way that he was talking on Thursday. He seems very confident in his ability. He's not afraid to project that. I think that's important at that position. I think some positions you can like toe the line a little bit of like, this guy might be a little too cocky, but I think a corner, you almost have to be that way.
Right.
Because of the nature of the position. So I think that plays for him, and it will play for him as he continues to talk to teams. So he has not been lumped in at all with the guys we were talking about on Wednesday on the Substack show, or these guys that are going to go in the first round or even in the first 2 rounds. But I think he could play himself into a spot where he is a second round pick.
You don't want cocky guards, right? Cocky guards.
No, you don't want to. No, like you're a guard, relax, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. But corner, all day. But
very confident in himself. And the thing, I did ask him about this, and this is one of those, again, I think there's a couple things. So the one thing about Caleb Downs, we'll talk to him a little bit. They cut his media session off after like 9 minutes because he had to go sit with Rich Eisen for 20 minutes. And then like when you're the super high profile guy, they need to take you to like every rights holder, and everybody gets it. And so then the Bill and Doug media, just the simple folk, we get less time. So like I didn't really get in. You were at Lorenzo Styles, I was at Caleb. I didn't even get a question into Caleb. I didn't get to like get in. But like what I want to know is like when we're here, especially, it's different for us. The NFL is getting to meet these Ohio State players for the first time. We're asking them the questions in a new environment. So then I want to ask questions that relate to the environment. So what I wanted to ask Caleb Downs about was like, what's it like getting on the board with these teams? Because I've talked about him as a coach on the field, how smart he is, the way he and Matt Patricia talk ball. Like, I wanted to know, like, how are your sessions where they're asking you about installs and you're breaking down ball and like coverages and that kind of thing, right? Like, what's it been like? Because that's not what he does at Ohio State, and I didn't get a chance to ask it. I really wanted to know, like, Caleb, take me through 30 seconds of what your meetings on the board have been like with these teams.
You were pretty far back.
I was.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't your fault. Just the nature of the beast here.
I'm out of practice. I gotta be I'm too nice. That's what everyone says about me. Doug, you're too nice.
Yeah, that's true. That's the first thing people say.
Davison Igbinosun, so I asked him about the penalties. And that was the number one story with Davison Igbinosun in his Ohio State career. All the penalties he had in 2024.
Most penalized player in the country.
Cut them way back in 2025. But I asked him, like, are NFL teams asking you about the penalties? And he said, "Oh yeah, they are."
He kind of laughed. He kind of laughed. Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, they're asking me about it."
But then his explanation was kind of the explanation he had given to us along the way. But like, it's interesting to me that it's like, this is probably the number one black mark on his resume. They are asking him about it, and he then, I think, is explaining it in a way that I like. If you're looking like 133, I might be a 4th rounder, and maybe you look at some of that stuff, but then you see his improvement, and he talked about the progress he made this past year, how he did it, how he went about it, the mistakes he knew he was making while doing it. I think that can make him more of a 50, because you look at the thing and it's like, is he going to get grabby in the NFL? Of course they're asking, but I'm not sure that he will.
I don't know that he will. The thing about that's interesting to me is I think there are maybe 2 ways you can go about that if you're Davison Igbinosun, right? You can do what he said to us, which we'll get to in a second, or you can say like, "Oh, well, I got a bad whistle. Like I wasn't officiated properly. I'm a big corner. They're not used to seeing me. They don't know how to call it when I'm out there playing." He didn't say that, because the truth about it is, like, they watch the tape too, these NFL teams.
Right.
You can conjure any excuse you'd like for why you were the most penalized player.
Right.
All they have to do is watch it, and they will come to their own conclusion for why you were the most penalized player. So you better come to the same conclusion when you're in these interviews and have an answer ready for that question. And I think Davison did come to the same conclusion, which is about being like more patient at the top of routes, right? Yeah. Like he's not in bad position. He's not getting beat in a foot race. He's where he's supposed to be. But at the time when the ball is coming, he still just gets a little antsy and gets a little handsy and was just too physical. And this past season, again, played with great positioning and was a little less anxious, I think, when those moments arose, and he cut down on the penalties. And I think anybody who's listening to this or watching this who has watched Davis in the last 2 years, I think you'd agree with that assessment too. So that's what he's saying to NFL teams. And I think the last thing he said was, like, watch the tape. You can see where I was doing wrong, and you can see the corrections this past season. And I think NFL teams will love that, because he's not going in there, whatever, making excuses or acting like it was anything outside of his control, that one, made it happen, and then 2, got it corrected.
He said he explained the things like that he did to do it. Like everyone knows, like Tim Walton was taping pot holders to his hands or whatever, right? So that he couldn't physically grab. He did talk about that top of the route stuff. And then I think it is the differentiation of now when you're getting into the NFL, you are a bigger corner, you're a physical corner. And you're going to be dealing with some of these incredibly, they're the best athletes among the best athletes on the planet, as NFL receivers. Their speed, their shiftiness, their change of direction. And if you feel like the only way that you can stay with these guys when they do change direction is to grab them, then you're going to be a fifth rounder.
Yeah.
If you have the physical ability to stay with them, and the reason you were grabbing them is because you were doubting yourself and you were thinking, I can't stay with them, so I'm going to grab them. But now in 2025, you proved you can stay with them, and can now you do it with a better class of player, with NFL guys instead of college guys. I think that is the question for him that NFL teams have to decide. Is it something that he's over, or is it something that might come back and he's going to get grabby again in the league if he is big and rangy, but maybe a step slower than the guys he's trying to cover?
And I actually don't know. You don't have his PFF page up, do you?
Get it up.
I don't think he was like super highly penalized at Ole Miss in his freshman season there. So it could be for him that his 2024 season, where he was again the most penalized defensive player in the country, is an outlier, and maybe that'll help him. I don't know. You are projecting, because the other part of it, like as much as I said, like he's not out there saying whatever, he got a bad whistle. That is a factor. So I think NFL teams have to ask themselves, like, well, was he playing better with better technique, or was he officiated differently? So, and that's can be a little hard to parse through at times.
Because I did think Ohio State corners were still a little grabby this year. Sometimes they didn't grab them. They didn't call them, but I thought they were grabby on running with guys in straight lines. And they weren't grabby when the ball's coming, and they weren't grabby change of directions when a guy's breaking off a route.
Yeah,
and
no, I think
you're not grabbing him as he's going away from you, if you're tugging on him because you're physical while you're running with him, I think they're much more tolerable of that. But that's that's like the art of playing corner, I think, right there. So like that happens. Like it only happens at Ohio State. But I think it can be a tricky conversation for teams. Like you have to, I don't know, have some conviction in believing what you're seeing, because he did improve on it last year. Penalties: 3 as a true freshman at Ole Miss, 6 his first year at Ohio State in 2023, 16 in 2024. 5 in 2025.
Yeah, so 4 years body of work and only 1 super high penalty year. I think teams can get over that.
And one of those, like, again, it's such a difference between some of these guys. We have Caden McDonald and Arbel Reese, who both played fewer than 1,000 defensive snaps in their college careers because they were 1-year starters at Ohio State and are here at the combine after 3 years in college. Davison Igbinosun's 4 years in college, but he's a 4-year starter. 1 at Ole Miss, 3 at Ohio State. He played 2,801 career defensive snaps in Power 4 college football.
That's a lot.
If he had 16 penalties the 1 year when he played 810 snaps, like, he has so much other film to show that it does not have to define him.
I now that I'm seeing these numbers, maybe it won't. It was all he was asked about. I think Dan Hope said, of 11 Warriors, said that there was a reporter who's not on the Ohio State beat who was there listening to Davison talk and was like getting angry that Davison was like saying like, yeah, I had a problem, but now I'm getting better at it with the penalties. And like, I think I'm one of the better corners, and just like projecting a lot of confidence, and was mad that he was saying that because he had so many penalties in 2024.
Still mad?
I don't think that's the way the NFL will react to him. It's the way that one reporter who was here, who apparently wasn't buying it. But I do think whether it's laying it out the way we just laid it out with his career kind of standard of penalties, or how he explained to us anyway, how he's talking to teams about it, I think he'll be okay.
We mentioned this today. We have reached the point now in our politics that on both sides of the aisle, we've had it with a president from both parties where you get heckled at the State of the Union, right?
Yes.
And we were asking if we should do that at NFL Combine interviews. So, like, if Davison Igbinosun was like giving a very mature, reasonable answer about like, and this is how I overcame my penalty issues, and a guy was like, not buying it, like, should we get there? Is that where we want to be?
Yeah, but I think you have to own it.
As NFL media,
this person was like doing it under their breath in a way that wasn't noticeable from Davison.
And then Dan Hope was like, "What's your problem?"
Yeah, what's up, bro? Yeah, get away from me.
So I think the two main things were the question that has it's the question about Davison Igbinosun. Like, we got away from it in 2025, but now it's back because it matters in this context.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel bad being like, oh, sorry, I have to ask you about this, because they're asking him about it.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is what became one of the main repeated things of this Ohio State season is Ryan Day talking about how important Davison Igbinosun was in raising the level, setting the standard, establishing an attitude in the cornerback room. And you and I asked him about that.
Great answers. Can I read some quotes?
Oh, my God.
Right.
You're so prepared to read quotes?
Yeah, I am.
I'm going to heckle you for reading quotes.
Let me close the window.
Good job, Landis.
That has Ari's picture in it. And then, so you asked him, you just said basically, Ryan Day said this about you. How did you do it? And he said, I went in there and I was Davison. I came to compete every single day. I played with a chip on my shoulder. I played with a passion. I was just going in there every day trying to prove myself. I followed up on that and said, when you do that, can that create friction? How do guys respond to it? Or were they like, what's up with this guy? Or did they follow your lead right away? And he said, of course, there's going to be friction when you walk into a room like that. Denzel Burke was a starter, but there was no solidified starter at the other spot. It was either going to be me or Jordan Hancock. And me and Jordan Hancock were starting to go at it because we both wanted the spot. Mm-hmm. Going through that situation, me and Jordan became the best of friends. And then he said, walking into a room with a situation like that, it just raises everybody else. When you see someone come in and he wants your job, you're going to do everything it takes to keep your job. And there's one more quote I want to read, because I don't know if this is a thing that like all athletes say, and maybe this is something that has been repeated in every team room across every sport in the country, but I thought it was badass. Davison Igbinosun said, at Ohio State, the seats are not owned. The seats you're sitting in, the rent is due every single day. You have to be doing something to keep your job, or you have to be doing something to take someone's job. Yeah.
It'd be a good, can we do this? You know how I'm always so interested in making nicknames for guys, because like back in the old days, old-timey sports writers always got to do nicknames.
Yeah. Like hop along.
Yeah. It might be too late, but maybe I can send it to Davison Igbinosun on social media. Davison Igbinosun, the landlord.
Oh, God, that's great.
Because guess what's up? The rent's due.
The rent is due.
When he's covering you, the rent is due. That's just another pass breakup by the landlord. You're not going to be able to throw on Davison Igbinosun like that.
I love it. He might. I think he'd love that too. Can we find him? We're gonna find him before we leave.
We like Davison Igbinosun because this is part of his story, and it's one of those. I don't know that anybody ever did like a sit down interview with Davison in his time at Ohio State about this, but he does have some degree of a stutter. Mm-hmm. And you said you heard him. I didn't know this. Maybe we should have dug this out when we're covering Ohio State for the last 3 years. When he was a freshman at Ole Miss, you said you found a podcast where he was talking about this.
Yes. I think it was part of an NIL deal. He did a podcast, I believe, with like someone maybe on the Ole Miss beat that was sponsored by whatever. And he said like part of doing that podcast was to help him get more comfortable with his stutter and speaking in front of people and speaking more confidently. And I think even if you watch that video from 4 years ago and then watch him over his time at Ohio State, you can see him speaking much more confidently. And even today, like it's still there, like whatever, it happens, but he certainly has powered through it. And one of the things he said, like I think it has helped him become like the player that he is. He said, I get to deal with some stuff in my life and like, it's not fun, but I deal with it and I get the job done. It's like, okay, great. So it's just like part of what he is and who he is, and hasn't stopped him from getting to this point where he's at right now, where he's about to get drafted into the NFL.
And I think you said that he believes that the more confident he is feeling when he speaks, the less prevalent that is.
Yeah, which I've heard before. Yeah, it's interesting.
And anyway, it was just like, I think you could tell. We are not pretending to be Davis. Well, I'm pretending to be his best friend. We're not pretending I'm giving him nicknames. We watched him. We watched him and we asked him questions, but he, I think, was projecting that he feels good about himself. He feels good about where he is. He feels good about what he's going to do at the combine. He feels good about the way he's talking to NFL teams. He feels good about what he's put on film. And I think he feels good about the point where he is in his life and everything he did at Ohio State, and that he's a 4-year Power 4 starter. He's a 3-year Ohio State starter. I think he is, again, we'll do it maybe this offseason, the most underrated Ohio State players of the last 10 years. I think he's very high on that list. But I think that is part of, because when you said that to me, I didn't know that. I had never listened to that podcast. You had said that he said that before we got him at the podium, and then you could just see him again. He did it a couple times, but like he projected like, I'm happy with where I am. And then when you thought about it in the context of, oh, this is the guy that Ryan Day was saying this about all year. And it was just like, I get why Ryan Day was saying that, because this guy is like projecting that out to the world right now. And I can envision him projecting that in a meeting room where he's like happy and confident and he's sitting up straight. And he's also like, hey, I'm going to take your job.
I do think Ryan Day likes cocky, right?
Like, but you know what's like
a little swagger.
Cocky.
Yeah, a little swagger.
Yeah. And back it up then. I played like so,
yeah.
So this isn't, and perhaps this is the headline of this show. We're not sure. But it's like hot take land, but also like it's not so outrageous that you couldn't maybe say it. And I theorized this to you. Is it possible that the Ohio State player the Buckeyes will miss most in 2026 is Davison Igbinosun?
In a specific way, yeah, I think so. Like he's not the most talented, right? That's Caleb Downs-Ezekiel Styles, Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate on the other side of the ball. But you got to have tone setters, right? You got to have guys who are going to kind of set the standard for work ethic and attitude, I think, in their room. And especially when you think about corner, right? Like pretty young. Like Jermaine Matthews is there. He's very confident in himself, but other than him, like it's a pretty young room. So I actually think there's probably a lot of pressure on Jermaine to pick it up in this specific regard. But yeah, if you want to talk more about like the emotional component of things, I do think he's a guy that they could miss quite a bit, if not the most.
Yeah, and it's just like trying to figure out again, like, well, if probably Jermaine's outside and Devin Sanchez is outside, and then Earl Little's in the slot, but like if something would happen or what, like that, like Davison was such a kind of came out of nowhere, just arrives from Ole Miss, and then just locks down an outside starting spot for 3 years. It was kind of like, again, like, man, that was like, they didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of like a wonderful thing. Again, he's not the best player, but he is a rock solid starter, no doubt about it, for 3 years. Like nobody was like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do there. And that's valuable.
It is valuable. They have added a corner transfer who was a freshman. He didn't start, but he kind of came out of nowhere. And now he's going to be at Ohio State for 3 years. Maybe Dominic Kelly can be the next Davison Igbinosun. No pressure.
Speak it into existence. Because the other thing that happened, and this is from a draft perspective, is we talked about this to some degree on the Substack show on Wednesday. Again, go find it, billanddougosu.substack.com. The idea of what Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese are laying down right now, have laid down in this early era of James Laurinaitis coaching Ohio State linebackers, and how valuable that can be. And we talked about it in comparison to what Brian Hartline did in the receiver room, and how Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were so important to that. Just in talking about rooms, like there was once upon a time where the Ohio State cornerback room was thought of in the same way as the receiver room. And Ohio State hasn't had a first-round draft pick at corner in 6 years.
It's been that long.
The last was in 2020. The last 5 drafts, let me see if I can do this, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's 5. They've only had 3 corners taken, and they all went in the 5th round. Sean Wade in 20. Now, remember what was the thing we were doing the other day? When I was like, oh, yeah, Kurt Cignetti needs to beat Ohio State. And you were like, what is wrong with you? You hit me in the head with a microphone. I'm hoping, like, I'm always like on the alert now. Like, am I missing something obvious? But I don't. Because
we were also on the Wednesday show. We were running through Ohio State's linebackers who've been drafted in the first round and just forgot Bobby Carpenter. So.
Yeah. And then Bobby Carpenter messaged us. No, he didn't. But somebody else did in the Substack chat. Thank you for telling us. Don't tell Bobby. Sean Wade, 5th round in 2021. And then Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock, 5th round last year.
That sounds right.
So, and then you think about, so in the last 12 years, I count sort of like Bradley Roby in 2014 is sort of the beginning of that, because it's like it's a little bit, it was like sort of restarted with Urban Meyer and Kerry Combs in that era, right? So the last 12 drafts, there have been 12 corners picked. 7 in the first round, 2 in the fourth round, and 3 in the fifth round. But again, no first rounders in the last 5 drafts. And so Davison Igbinosun almost certainly will be Ohio State's highest drafted cornerback since 2020, because I think he will go higher than the 5th round.
I think he will too. I think I would guess that he's a day 2 pick. Maybe he's late day 2.
So we think we're going to ring the bell. We used to do that on Buckeye Talk, where we would do it with us, the 2 of us and Ari. We would sit. I still have the bell. We would have a bell on a table, and we would like find a range where we think an Ohio State guy would be drafted, and then we would say like number 2, the Jets, number 3, the whatever, number 4, ding, I'll take Caleb Downs at number 4, right? And so we're going to do that. So we'll do it. We'll put our money where our mouth is, and then everybody says before the draft, where do you actually think these Ohio State guys will be drafted? But you just think about this. I think we're probably both in agreement, higher than round 5. First round picks: Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett in 2020. Denzel Ward in 2018, Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley in 2017, Eli Apple in 2016, Bradley Roby in 2014. Like, that feels like kind of a long time ago. He is not going to be a first-round pick. But could we look back to some degree and say that Davison Igbinosun and everything we just said about him, like, restarted Ohio State's NFL draft cornerback legacy or something?
I think
like
so.
That.
Yeah, because we've had the BIA conversation, right? They lost it. What they kept calling themselves that? They weren't that for a while. Denzel Burke, I think, is critical in bringing that back, but then he only ends up being a 5th round pick, and it's not merely about draft stock, but like it kind of is. Like the BIA thing is like, look at all the first round draft picks,
right?
So yes, I think it's possible we can look back at Davison and kind of pinpoint him now. Probably more like a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round pick, but like that's where it restarted, because you think of what's coming down the like, and I don't know what Jermaine Matthews is going to be, but at least by recruiting pedigree, right? Like there's Devin Sanchez coming, the 2 guys they just signed in this 2025 recruiting class, Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas. Thank you. 2026 recruiting class. I think have that kind of upside too. So yeah, and Tim Walton obviously is credited with that too. But yeah, I think it could be back on the upswing, and if and when that happens a couple of years from now, I think we will look back at this draft and say, like, it kind of started with Davison.
And as we talk here, like, we're at the combine, it's just a different conversation. Like, the primary conversation for Ohio State football and Ohio State fans is what you do on the field as an Ohio State Buckeye that helps winning. So, like, that's like Denzel Burke did a lot of that, right? And then, like, at the end, he saved the cornerback room as a true freshman, right? Like, Denzel Burke was very important to Ohio State winning games. And then just like the way his career kind of unfolded, I mean, like if he plays his career in reverse, he might be a higher draft pick, right? But now when we're talking about him, there's two fair ways. What do you do at Ohio State to help the winning? But then also, what are you doing we are a place that produces talent, and it matters because they put all the pictures up everywhere in the building. They put all the helmets up. Like, they want to produce high NFL draft picks.
Yeah.
And so that's like, it's a secondary component of this secondary discussion, but it still matters to everybody. And that's where, like, Davison already, I think, laid it down in the room, and I think he's gonna lay it down in the draft. So
yeah, I think he will too.
Let's see what he is. Like, we're recording this Thursday. Guys have been measured. The defensive linemen and linebackers, they took their arms and they put a tape measure on it, and they say, how long's your arm? And then, but
Katie McDonald, very long arms.
Long arms. So they're working out. So we're not. If something happens where, like, I don't know what, Arvell Reese
and Sonny Styles are going to run their 40s after we're done recording.
That's what I'm trying to say. So, like, if you're asking, like, waiting for us to talk about that, we're not. We're going to do more stuff. I think we'll talk about it at some point. We have a long time before the draft. But long arm Cade McDonald caught your eye.
Yeah, his measurables, like in terms of arm length and wingspan, were like not exactly the same, but also quite close to Arvell Reese's, which really surprised me. Katie McDonald, who's 6'2", and Arvell Reese is 6'4", and play very different positions. It just sort of was like, oh, that's why Katie McDonald was very good.
Yeah.
He's a little undersized, sure, but he's got the wingspan and arm length of a guy who's much taller than him, and I bet that created some problems for offensive linemen.
Yeah. Let's talk about Caleb Downs.
He's good.
They cut short 9 minutes at the podium, cut it short. He was sort of in his I'm smart.
He had his glasses on, Professor Downs.
He was Professor Downs, but like kind of professor, but it's like Professor Downs who's saving his good stuff for his own podcast. I mean, it's like I would say it to Caleb's face, Caleb, we know you can do better than this, but you're saving it for your own podcast. So like,
don't you respect it though?
I mean, I do respect it, but I said he's like we're simultaneously interviewing him, and he's a competitor. So like, I get it. It's like I guess you put your brain and body on the line. You don't have to give us free answers. You can save it for your brother. But I didn't learn a ton about Caleb Downs. The one thing he did that we found from an NFL combine perspective funny is that many NFL reporters here, because they are covering a certain team, ask players, did you talk to this team? Did you have a meeting with this team? And Caleb Downs just like made it very clear from the start. He said, I met with about a dozen teams and I'm not going to talk about who they were. And I think like 14 NFL reporters fainted.
Why am I here? Why do I exist if this player won't tell me whether or not he met with the team that I cover, formally or informally?
So, I mean, but it's one of those, I mean, there's headlines out there right now. I saw, it's like I was Googling Davison Igbinosun, and the first headline that popped up was like Davison Igbinosun meets with New York Jets. It's like, and Jets fans are like, oh, cool. I'm glad to have that information. So it's just part of what the combine is, but it was like, we didn't learn a ton. I was curious again about like what Caleb is showing off, but I do think we'll write about Caleb. I think we're down to, I'm not sure there's much mystery with Caleb, and I'm curious. Like on the list of things, I feel like what Caleb does with his measurables won't matter as much because you kind of know what he is, and it's.
Did he say whether or not he's going to do drills?
No, he didn't even get it in 9 minutes. He didn't get asked him.
Okay.
He might have said it on the Rich Eisen show for his 17-minute interview.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. But like, how important do you think the combine is for Caleb Downs?
Not very well for the interview portion of it, I guess important, but like the on-field stuff, I'm not sure, unless like they're Daniel Jeremiah thinks he's like not the most athletic guy in the world, right?
Right.
And I don't know how prevalent that thought is, but if that thought exists in some places, I suppose there are things Caleb could do to dispel that notion or not, by doing some of the stuff on the field on Friday. But I don't think it's going to matter a ton. I think he's like pretty locked in as like this guy's going to be a top 12 pick.
So I don't want to give. It's a hard thing. People pay for our Substack, and we do shows on our Substack behind that paywall. But we also do these free shows because we're glad to be out here with the people, right? I always wonder sometimes, like, if I'm going to write something, should I say it on the free show?
Sure.
Chief Content Officer Bill Landis?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
It's called a tease.
I remember being at the 2016 NFL Combine, and one of the main things was it was clear that Ezekiel Elliott, and it's funny, I actually remember thinking this at the time, and like I kind of like was like, I'm not going to write this. What's the point? But like Derrick Henry was also there, and Derrick Henry is like as tall as a skyscraper, and I can remember thinking like, are we sure Derrick Henry isn't just as good of a draft prospect as Ezekiel Elliott? Like, why? I don't know what I'm like.
Yeah.
It's not that Zeke's not good, but like this guy's 9 inches taller than Zeke. And then it's like Derrick Henry's been Derrick Henry. And then Ezekiel Elliott had a great career. But
one of them's going to the Hall of Fame and one of them's not.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So I remember I wrote it at the time. I remember asking a lot of people at the time. That was kind of right at the start of positional value with running backs. And like, can Ezekiel Elliott go in the top 5? And it's not about how good he is. It's entirely about positional value. And there were people there who were like, yes, like now we were not here on Monday and Tuesday when most of the NFL GMs and coaches spoke, but like for that combine back then, I was there for that. So I was asking coaches and GMs, like theoretically, philosophically, what, specifically with Ezekiel Elliott, but generally, can a running back go that high? And then it's like, yeah, he did. He went 4th because he's Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
And he like took the NFL by storm. And it was like, well, that was a good pick, right? Like that's what I'm thinking of with Caleb Downs. Can a safety go this high? And then I feel like that it is so obvious. It was so obvious how good Ezekiel Elliott was. It was like, hey, he wants to have a conversation about how good Ezekiel Elliott is. It's like nobody, because the conversation is he's really good. The conversation from an NFL perspective was, what's the value of the position? How does it compare to very good players at other positions? And that's what I've been reminded of all week, a decade later, of Caleb Downs is Ezekiel Elliott. And the discussion is positional value at safety. And I'm in the Google machine. I think the last time that a safety went in the top 5 was 2010.
Eric Berry.
So like that's what we're talking about. And it feels like, and so I wrote that story before the draft, and then like the answer was like, yes, Ezekiel Elliott is worth it. And I think Mel Kiper has Caleb Downs second in his mock draft. I think the answer is going to be yes, Caleb Downs is worth it. But I think that's kind of like the only question about Caleb Downs as an NFL draft prospect.
I think so too, and I just don't know. I think most teams would probably say that he is, and I don't know what there is that would knock them off of that, because it's not even like what if he goes out on Friday and isn't blazing fast. Like, it's not going to be slow, right? Like we've seen him play. He's super athletic. He might be more cerebral than he is athletic, but that's okay, and he's versatile. He was talking about like playing deep, playing nickel, playing corner. Like, he thinks he can do all that stuff at the NFL level. I kind of think he can too. So
yeah,
pretty safe. Like, incredibly high floor. I don't know exactly what the ceiling is, but I would probably bet on him being an All-Pro a couple times. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess back to your original question, like how important all of this is for him.
So, and here's the other thing that perhaps this is my official opinion on NFL positional value is quarterback is on the moon, and then everything else is equal.
That's where you are?
I think that's where I am.
Okay.
And I would take, if you don't have a quarterback, I might take 9 quarterbacks. Taking a quarterback in the first round, the second round, the third round, until we find a quarterback. Because the quarterback is like everything, right? Now, of course, the Seattle Seahawks found Sam Darnold in free agency because the Vikings were good with J.J. McCarthy. So I get that. But here's the example as we were just talking about it. You know, you just stand around, you end up standing around shooting the football breeze with the fellas. So I was saying this to them. I was podcasting at them. They didn't have a choice. I didn't have a microphone, but I did have opinions. Myles Garrett is like arguably, or maybe inarguably, as good as any defensive end in NFL history. Has zero impact on the Browns winning games. None. I would say that's not a critique of Myles Garrett, but actually, like I actually think it's like 10% a critique on Myles Garrett, which like I think Myles Garrett, frankly, could maybe do a little bit more of like raising the level of the team. But in his job, like in the job, not like being in the locker room and hugging everybody, but like doing the job that he's paid to do, which is go get the quarterback. He's as good as anybody that's ever done it. His team stinks like hot garbage. He came to the Browns immediately in the aftermath of the Browns having arguably, like in the conversation, as good as any left tackle ever in Joe Thomas. Meant nothing to the Browns winning games.
Sure didn't.
Meant nothing.
Yeah.
For a decade. So, and I think if you're talking positional value, if you're having a safety conversation, it's like, well, is left tackle more valuable than safety? Yeah. Is edge rusher more valuable than safety? Yeah. Okay. I know a team that had 2 Hall of Famers for a decade each, and they sucked the whole time. So, like, go get good players, and if you don't have a quarterback, none of it matters. But why would so? Because here's the thing that I think is the point of positional value. It's not about like, are you going to be good or not? It's going to be, is it possible that you're good, and it doesn't matter? That like we drafted Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is everything we thought he would be, and it didn't do that much because safeties are not as important as these other things. So we have to go get the guys who, if and when they are good, will contribute to winning more. And I would say Myles Garrett and Joe Thomas. So if you're not a quarterback, like I would start throwing the positional value stuff out the window. Give me the best football players. And I want as many good football players as possible while we look for our franchise quarterback. And guess what? Caleb Downs is as good of a football player as anybody in this draft.
I'm sold. I think. Because I don't he could end up a couple of places that maybe think they have their quarterback. So then I get like, I'm trying to think. I don't know the draft order off the top of my head. Like I should, I guess, while I'm sitting here at the NFL draft combine.
Quarterback to take, like, so Mendoza's going 1, and then
there's not a quarterback. There's not a quarterback to take
instead of Caleb.
I just wonder, like, are there enough teams in the top 12 that do have their quarterback who then want to draft the left tackle
to help the
quarterback that they already have?
That is a bet. Like, if you have the quarterback, what is the positional value that helps that quarterback win the most? Or that helps the team. So the Jets.
Who's the Jets quarterback? Who's the Jets quarterback?
Is it Chad Pennington?
No.
It was Justin Fields this past year, but then they decided it's not him anymore. Do they have a quarterback? Hey, does anyone know who the Jets quarterback is?
The Jets
the NFL Combine.
The Jets social team was sitting behind us.
Is this outrageous? No one here knows this.
We're
We're humble college football writers.
Jets predicted to replace Justin Fields with intriguing young quarterback. Are they going to be like in the Malik Willis market?
Oh, okay. So they have none.
So they don't have a quarterback, which I guess we could have just assumed because they're the Jets.
The Cardinals have no quarterback. They're third.
Yeah.
The Titans have Cam Ward. So if the Titans are saying, like, we want to have people to help Cam Ward win, but then I would argue it's like, all right, Cam Ward's the quarterback of your offense. Get Caleb Downs to be the quarterback of your defense. That'll help Cam Ward win. The Giants have Jackson Dart. I'm not all the way there.
But he's their guy. They think he's
Malik Neighbors. Like, they could take Caleb Downs. The Browns have no quarterback. They have no anything. The Commanders have Jaden Daniels. Like, Caleb Downs. Like I think that would make sense. The Saints have Tyler Shuck.
Yep.
The Chiefs, I can't remember who their quarterback is. And then the Bengals have Joe Burrow. So, like, again, Dave Biddle, our buddy from around the shoe, is on his knees for Caleb Downs, begging that the Bengals can get him at 10. There wouldn't be anybody here that I would say to these teams, even like would you say to the Giants, if Caleb Downs and Francis Maui-Noah, the tackle from Miami, are both there, would you say to the Giants, I like Maui-Noah, he's a tackle, he's going to lock down a side of the line, and played right tackle in college, but I don't know but he's going to protect Jackson Dart. You want Jackson Dart to be able to get the ball to Malik Neighbors. Maui-Noah helps you more than Caleb Downs does.
I would tell him to trade down.
Okay.
Just because I don't want them to have good players.
Oh, yeah, you hate the Giants. But, like, is that
it's
like
not.
So if we do it with the Commanders at 7, you need to protect Jaden Daniels. Take Francis Maui-Noah instead of Caleb Downs. Would you say that?
If you have a quarterback who's got the goods, I think I probably would say that, yeah.
Okay. But if you don't have a quarterback, then you are just
then everything's
in
open.
Good players mode.
You were just I'm taking the best football players regardless of position, and Caleb Downs might be the best football player regardless of position in this entire draft.
Yeah, and so, like, that's the thing. He was asked that question. I don't think it's a bad question, just to see how guys answer it. But if you see a quote that, like, Caleb Downs, because there's even some ones who have backdrops here who are just like aggregation farmers who just take every quote out of context and it doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, sometimes they say things they don't mean, and sometimes they mean things they don't say. Caleb Downs has a quote out that you can read it on an interweb site as like, yes, I'm the best player in this draft. But it's like somebody said, Caleb, are you the best player in this draft? And he's like, I guess if I step on the football field, I'm going to think I'm the best player.
Yeah.
And then it's like, Downs throws down gauntlet to league. But he might be. Like, if we're doing that, and I'm sure there's somebody who's smart enough to create content between now and the end of April that is listing the best football players, because I'm not even sure a big board is that. We were talking about
a big board factors in positional value, I think.
Like the best football players. Like when we said the best player on Ohio State's 2015 team was Cam Johnston, because nobody was better at their job at their position than the punter. Does that mean we draft Cam Johnston ahead of Joey Bosa? Yes, it does. But it doesn't.
That team had 14 draft picks.
Cam Johnston's been a good NFL punter.
Yes.
But if you and I back then at Cleveland.com had said, like, let's do a list of who are the best football players, right? If you were doing that with this draft class, I think you might arrive at Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I think you would. Yeah, I don't. Jeremiah Love, maybe. I think that's the conversation. It's like which of these two guys do you like?
Yeah.
I don't pretend to be more of a draft expert than I am because I'm not one at all. But he'd get my vote. Caleb would, because I thought he was the best player. It was like him or Jeremiah Smith, I guess. Maybe Jeremiah Smith, Jeremiah Love, but Jeremiah Smith's not in.
Buckeyes.
Jeremiah Smith's not in this draft. But we ended with Caleb first, right?
I think
Did we
so.
not?
Yeah, he's good at football. So that's where we're on Caleb Downs. Lorenzo Styles, you talked to him. And
16 minutes with Lorenzo Styles, by the way. Only 9 with Caleb. 16.
Downs, they got the hook and they're like, "You're done." And then someone came over to me. It was like the NFL forgot to like shut Lorenzo Styles down.
He was the only guy talking for a while, and then one of the workers was just like walking by, looking at his sheet, and then like looked up, was like, "Oh, someone's talking. I guess I should go get them off the stage."
Oh yeah,
because it was Lorenzo Styles who talked for almost 17 minutes.
But he's a fine fella. Was he agitated by having to deal with you yahoos for so long?
No, I think the only thing that seemed to agitate him was he was getting asked some Notre Dame questions.
Oh,
I think there's a Notre Dame writer here who was asking him about his time at Notre Dame, but then also about Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham.
Yes,
and those answers were a little short.
Yeah. Davison Igbinosun, and again, like kudos to that reporter. You got to get stuff for your audience that they might care about. And Davison Igbinosun said about Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham, like, I covered them in practice, and I think they're good players, and I think they'll do a great job at Notre Dame. So that stuff happens, man.
Yeah. Lorenzo Styles, I don't think said that many words. He didn't say those guys stink, but like he just like kind of waved the question off a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else? Like what? Lorenzo Styles will be interesting to watch run. We've talked about that.
Yeah. He, again, fastest guy on the team. I guess we'll find out. I think he stands to put up a pretty good 40 time. I think for him, it's more of like the 3-cone or the agility stuff than the straight line speed that'll determine kind of what teams think of him. I actually think he's going to be in the NFL for a long time as a special teamer. I just don't know if his ceiling is anything higher than that, but NFL teams need
gunner, huh?
They need core special teamers. I think I asked this of him because he returned a punt against UCLA this year. Like the NFL has changed the rules to bring the kickoff return back into the game, and I think he's a pretty good kickoff returner, right? So I think like that gunner. He said corner, nickel, safety, all 4 special teams is like that's what I can do for an NFL team, and like he is not. I think sometimes you might get a guy up here and they say like special teams, and they say like, well, I'm more than that. Like, I'm not entertaining that. They're just like, no, I'll come be an animal on special teams for your NFL team if you want me to. Like he's older, he'll interview really well. I think he's got pretty good football IQ. He just might be like a little bit limited in terms of like the athletic stuff beyond straight line speed. But he's also a guy who I thought like got significantly better over the course of his time at Ohio State, and I asked of him, like, because he was talking about Arvell Reese and some other guys, like, he said, like, at a place like Ohio State, it only takes a year for you to become a star and put yourself on the stage like Arvell has and like Katie McDonald did. Mm-hmm. But he was sort of lamenting that he's really only been focusing on defensive back for kind of 2 years. And he didn't say, like, I wish I had just played it from the jump. He started as a receiver at Notre Dame. Before he transferred to Ohio State, he was doing a little bit of both at Notre Dame, receiver and defensive back. Then he got to Ohio State, became a defensive back, but he really wasn't. He only had 1 year as a starter. He was a dime back the year before that. He's not played a lot of defensive back in college. Mm-hmm. Now, he thinks that's a plus because he thinks he's got a lot of room to grow despite being an older player. But my hunch is that would probably be more maybe held against him given his age. So it's like a little bit of a tough spot to be in. But I think he's probably going to run well enough. And again, that'll happen on Friday to get drafted late. And I think, like I said, I think I'll make a decent living being a special teamer.
And he put it on film this year. He can play nickel, and then he can drop back and play that deep safety spot. So it's like if you're the last guy on the active roster for a game, and you're going to play all 4 special teams, and you can be like the backup at multiple positions in the secondary. Like you can be player 45 on a roster doing that.
Absolutely. I think that's a. Just get to that, what do you call it? To get to the pension. Get to the pension, baby. Yeah. That's all it takes.
You know who wants you to get to the pension? The landlord. Because he's coming for that rent. Tight ends, 2 tight ends. We thought they were going to speak at the same time. Klare and Will Kacmarek, they were scheduled to. And then things got all jammed up, and then they didn't speak at the same time. So then I left and made you talk to both of them.
I did talk to both of them. I won't lie and say they were like super enlightening. Max Klare was asked a lot about like his decision to transfer. We were like sort of like dancing around, and it was never really asked directly. Like, do you think transferring to Ohio State worked for you? And I think he thinks it did, right? And because there's stuff about like, hey, you weren't the number one receiver at Ohio State when you were the number one receiver at Purdue, but it's like his production actually wasn't all that different. It's just that 40 receptions leads Purdue and 40 receptions is third at Ohio State.
Right.
So like I don't know that his existence was all that different. And I think he feels he did make some strides as a blocker this past year. I'm a little surprised he came out, but it's not a great tight end class from what I can gather. So I think it makes sense. Like if, for instance, they have the players like assigned podiums here, but they change all the time. Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon was supposed to be at podium 5. So the entire like Philadelphia Eagles media contingent huddled around that because the Eagles need a tight end and Kenyon Sadiq is the best tight end in the draft. But then they switched it and Klare ended up being a podium 5. But like a bunch of the Eagles media, like we're still asking Klare questions because like he's an option for them too, I think fairly early for tight end needy teams. Max Klare is going to be pretty high up on the board because of this, like the lack of depth, I think, at the position in this draft. So I think the decision to come out early will work out fine for him, but I don't know, like me personally, I don't feel like maybe he rides as a blocker at Ohio State in the one season he was there and could have had he stayed another year, but his receiving tape, especially at Purdue, I think will go pretty far when he's talking to people here.
And that was part of the thing, right? I mean, was that not part of the deal? I'm coming to Ohio State in part to like become a more well-rounded tight end and like to improve my draft stock. And
yeah.
Did you improve your draft stock? Daniel Jeremiah did talk about this, that it's Sadiq is kind of the only guy at the top of the tight end class. Certainly, I think the only guy even in consideration in the first round. Looking at this mock draft database, Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon is 19th overall. Eli Stowers or Stowers? Do you know? I
think it's Stowers. Yeah.
Quarterback, he had the privilege of catching passes from the great Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt.
Short king. He's 5'9".
He's 50. Is he here?
I don't know. Oh, yes, he is here. Yes. Yeah.
We should stay for the quarterbacks just for that. He's at 59th overall, which is
I wonder if he'll be the shortest player here. Him or D'Angelo Pons.
Now you think it's like that does happen to me. I think of good questions after the interview sessions, but to ask D'Angelo Pons the battle between you and Diego Pavia to be the shortest player here.
Shortest player. Combine. There are kickers and punters here, by the way.
But D'Angelo Pons is a great player.
Yeah.
Max Klare is at 72 on the mock draft database as an overall player, which is like third round, solid in the third round. And then so he's the third tight end. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20th tight end in the mock draft database is Will Kacmarek at 253, which is like right on the edge of getting drafted. I will go on the record now, and we'll have a bell later. I think Will Kacmarek will go somewhat significantly higher than that. I think Max Klare will go lower.
I think I can get behind that. I don't know about the Klare lower, but I think Kacmarek might rise here. He is a guy. I think he said he's going to do all the stuff, all the testing. It's weird. They had the tight ends go, but like all the offensive guys, it was like all defense and then the tight ends, and then the rest of the offensive guys go later this week in terms of interviews and workouts and stuff. The tight ends obviously will be out there when the quarterbacks are throwing on Saturday. I don't know what the athletic profile is for Will Kacmarek, but I know that he blocks his butt off and teams like that a lot. And he was sort of embracing the idea of like, yeah, that's what I'm about. Like, throw me the ball, don't throw me the ball. I'm here to block people. And I think you have to have the versatility, right, to succeed in the league and get paid, something above like league minimum or something like that. But he's kind of a no-nonsense guy who wants to do the dirty work that I think teams will very much appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in analyzing the draft, you can get overly enamored with pass-catching tight ends when actually I think sometimes the NFL is like, oh, like you're a tall tight end who wants to play in the slot. It's like we have receivers who do that. Right. You block.
Yeah.
Just for example, I think we made a lot of comparisons there, right? Klare is Jeremy Ruckert, Luke Farrell is the comparison for Will Kacmarek. Luke Farrell in the 2021 draft was a little surprising. He was the first pick of the 5th round as drafted by Urban Meyer, pick 145. And then Jeremy Ruckert the next year in 2022 was picked late in the 3rd round, pick 101. And I just think maybe if you would have said Jeremy Ruckert and Luke Farrell will be picked 44 picks apart, not the same draft, not the exact same thing, maybe you would have thought there would have been a bigger gap there, that maybe you would have thought Ruckert's going to be more like a second rounder, and I'm even sure Luke Farrell's going to get picked. And I think we could be, now there's no Urban Meyer to draft Buckeyes, but I think we could be looking at
Jeff Hafley.
That's true. Maybe a little bit of a similar thing where like Klare is just not quite like, if you're like waiting around in the late second round for Max Klare, and it's like, oh, he went like closer to pick 100 than to pick 50. And then Kacmarek goes closer to like pick 150 than pick 250, right?
Yeah,
like, I just think that's where we could be.
I can see that happening. And I think Farrell's had like a slightly better career than Ruckert to this point. Maybe Ruckert's had some injury stuff.
Yeah, and no quarterback.
And no quarterback because he plays for the Jets, who stink.
All right, so that I think will do it. I think we're going to do a Wednesday show on this feed. We try to do a national show late in the week, and we have not certainly been hammering that here. We did not go around and ask everybody like, how come the North is good and the South stinks? But well,
it's understood now. You don't have to. I
wouldn't mind taking a little bit of an exam because, like, again, it's not draft season yet, but like we can do a little bit of this before spring football starts. Like, you know, I just like did that, like the eyeglass face, the Mr. Peanut eyeglass face on like a Bruce Feldman tweet the other day. Because like Bruce Feldman's just pointing out like there's no SEC players in Daniel Jeremiah's top 20. And there's like 10 Big Ten players. And it's like,
how about that?
Yeah. So I would like to do a show where we cram this microphone right up the SEC and talk about how many good Northern players there are in this draft. And we'll just sprinkle that a little bit here in late February before we turn our eyes towards spring football.
I like it. Let's do it. Any chance to put the South in its place, I'm in favor of.
Thanks to you guys for being part of it. Bill and Doug, OSU.substack.com. If you want the 2 shows we do there every week for our subscribers, we're writing a bunch of stuff from the combine. We're going to start writing a bunch of stuff and previewing Ohio State spring football, which starts on March 10th, as you guys know. And we'll continue to put out some stuff here in the YouTube and podcast feed. And we're just, we had a good time in Indy. So thanks to everybody who are Substack subscribers. We did a survey. What do you want us to do? And there was enough interest that we should come. And I think we're glad we did.
I'm glad we did. Yeah. We're going to go to Outback Steakhouse, I think, for dinner.
Ooh.
On the way out.
Maybe Texas Roadhouse.
Oh, never been to. Yeah. Okay.
And we think we can get a table next year that says the Bill and Doug Show.
Yeah. Not Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. We set off. I'm Kevin O'Connell. He's Donovan Jackson. That's what we did on our test feed.
I'm Randy Moss.
You know, how many? Oh, this would be a good whatcha question. How many jerseys of athletes like with their name on the back have you ever owned or worn?
Oh yeah, I got a lot. I went through a real phase. I don't know. Like I had like a Jeremy Shockey jersey when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and I'm an Eagles fan. I still had a Jeremy Shockey jersey.
Okay, I don't think they're still both in my closet. Oh, I'll wear them on the show when we do it. They're both still in my closet. They're, I think, the only 2 I ever had, and they're the last 2 I ever had. It's been a very long time, but one was Peyton Manning and one was Randy Moss.
Nice. I had a Peyton Manning and didn't have a Randy Moss. I'll rack my brain and try to inventory as much as I can all the jerseys that I've owned, and I'll bring that to a show.
We'll bring that to a whatcha. We do that on Wednesdays. We appreciate you guys hanging out for now from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, where we're still trying to figure out who is the Jets quarterback. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.